In the latest edition of ACORD's Tech Talk, host Johnell Johnson continues her series on cybersecurity and the insider threat with Eric Qualkenbush from BLACKOPS Partners.
Hello and welcome to Tech Talk. I'm Johnell Johnson. We are continuing our three-part series on cybersecurity and the insider threat. Joining me today is Eric Qualkenbush. He is on the board of directors for BLACKOPS Partners Corporation, and we are so glad to have you here.
Thanks, Johnell. I appreciate it.
So what are some of the things we need to know in order to address the insider threat of cybersecurity? Because we always hear about the outsiders in China and Russia and all of the other countries that we normally hear about. But the insider is the big threat. So what can we do?
Right. You know, it's important to look at this in terms of what we mean by an insider. And, you know, a lot of the information security space right now is consumed with cyber solutions that just focus on the technical aspects, and they don't pay attention to, as much as they should, to the human element. And so when we look at this, in fact, most cyber attacks are facilitated by human intervention of some kind. And most of the human intervention is a result of employee negligence, carelessness, or simply not having been indoctrinated about the dangers. I can tell you from experience that it's much easier to exploit humans with legal access to a network than it is to hack into the network using only technical means. And in essence, what I always like to say is it's much better to use a key than to pick the lock. So what many people don't recognize is that the folks that are trying to get at the networks, the hackers, whoever they may be, are constantly looking at the employees. The employees, contractors, and supplies are the weakest link in this whole thing. And you know, an example of this is the People's Liberation Army, the Chinese People Liberation Army Unit 61398. It's what's called an APT, an Advanced Persistent Threat Unit, and it's one of the most famous for conducting this kind of exploitation where it looks at the people. There are actually more than 20 of these APTs across China. And I want to give you an example of an APT unit or how an APT unit exploits a company. A few years ago, the FBI notified ExxonMobil, ConocoPhillips, and Marathon Oil that most of their proprietary information, and this included oil leases, exploration, seismographic data, was siphoned off of their systems by China. Wow. This literally involved billions of dollars in trade secrets and competitive information in which those companies had invested. The companies asked the FBI for advice on how they might, you know, change their information systems to prevent future attacks. And the thing to keep in mind is that the FBI is not in the consulting business. Right. They are there to, you know, protect and inform when a breach has taken place. But they did advise that all of these breaches were a result of what's known as a phishing, that's spelled P-H-I-S-H-I-N-G, attack on the email of senior company employees who were essentially duped into responding to false emails. That gave the Chinese the initial access to the various company networks. That was essentially the key. The Chinese didn't have to pick the lock because they had a key.
Right. So how do you prevent them from getting that key and getting the insider employee who most likely doesn't even know what's happening and it's not even intentional?
That's absolutely right. One of the most important things, though, is that can help the organization address this human element is essentially to understand what secrets they have. In other words, the identification, ranking, and compartmentation is one of the most effective means of protecting the company's trade secrets. Many companies have not taken the time to identify their trade secrets or identify who has access to critical competitive information. So this is exactly how it's done in the intelligence community, I promise you. What they do is the organizations identify their trade secrets, rank them on the basis of which ones might cause the most economic damage if revealed, and then place them in compartments which limit access to only the employees who truly have a need to know, who actually need that access.
Right.
And then they have to track which employees have that access and make sure that they continue to track so they know, who has access to the biggest secrets. And in this way, they can compartment this down and protect the things that really need to be protected, as opposed to just trying to protect everything.
We'd like to thank ACORD for their contribution to our program. If you'd like to see more Tech Talk on cybersecurity, visit the ACORD website or the RIN TV On Demand Library.